Today we're going to make a child-sized Minnie Mouse beanie. When you make the beanie, please use black and pink colors. For the video, however, I'm going to do the demonstration in white because black is not going to show up on camera well at all. I apologize for my voice. I do have a cold, so I sound a little off today. So the way we're going to begin is we're going to cast on with white, and we're going to begin with the hat part of the beanie. Cast on and do 60 rounds. Cut a reasonably long tail and let it drop into the middle of the machine. Now go around the machine once without feeding any yarn in. Thread a yarn needle with that end and pick off all the stitches and put them on the end. Pull both ends of the hat so that your stitches start to cinch up and tighten up. And now we're going to construct this the same way we construct all beanies. On the end that you just pulled off, start pulling this so that everything cinches together into a tight spot. Try to make sure that hole is closed as much as possible. Then you still have your needle attached to this end of yarn. Stick it through the middle of that hole, grab it from the inside with your other hand, and pull that yarn through. So now it's sticking out the other side. Eyeball where the middle of this hat is. Grab that spot roughly with your hands like that, and start to flip this inside out so that it is level with the bottom, the open bottom. And now we're going to do the same thing, cinching the side that's open right now. So find that tail right here and start pulling. And just make sure that yarn that you pulled through from the side you already closed up, this is sticking out. Don't let it slip inside the middle of the two pieces. Okay, so now you're going to have something that looks like that. And measure this on the child that you're making this for. If you need it a little longer, this is 60 stitches. You might need to do 70 stitches, or for a smaller child, you might need to do 50 stitches, 55. You can kind of play around with it. But this beanie has no ribbed band like that. It's just going to lay flat like this. So once you've closed up those two holes, pull up the inside tail as high up as it can go, because that guarantees that what's on the inside is touching the top of the outside. Okay, so we're going to pull both of these really tightly. And for this hat, because it is for a very small child, I am just going to tie these two sections as knots. I'm not going to weave anything in. These tails are really long, so I'm just going to make them shorter. And I'm just going to tie a bunch of really tight knots. And that first knot is the most important. Just make sure you get that hole closed. And then just double them up, triple them up. Okay. Grab your yarn needle again and put both of these tails on the yarn needle. Okay, and then you're going to put the needle through the center hole and just make sure that it comes through the center on the inside as well. Pull it through, and then you're going to do the same thing where you tie around 3 or 4 knots really tightly. And then trim this so that it's not quite so long, but we will tuck that in later on. Flip it right side out, and there is the first half of the hat completed. Now we're going to start making the half circles for the ears. To make the ears, we're going to do panel or flat knitting. If you already know how to do panel knitting, cast on 20 stitches and do 44 rows. And skip this section of the video. If you don't know how to do panel knitting, I'm going to show you how to do it right now. So for a beginner with this, I highly recommend using a dry erase marker, and on the red notch right before the black pin, put a mark at the very topmost part of the pin, like over here, because if you do it any lower, the yarn is just going to slip on it and rub the marker off. Now we're going to count 20 pins and we'll make our second mark. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And it's labeled there as well, but it's a little hard to see. The notch after the 20th, we're going to put a second mark right there. And those 2 marks are going to really help us visualize where we begin and start. Cast on 20 stitches. So put the yarn under the black pin and we're going to count 20 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Now we're up to the pin right before where we made our marker spot. So wrap the yarn so that you don't lose the yarn from that pin. Open the yarn feeder, put the yarn inside, and close it. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that this yarn goes underneath the notch of the notch that we just marked. So I'm going to show you this right now. We're going to keep going in the same direction, and we're paying attention to this yarn right here. We want this yarn to flip under and get caught. So it's starting to go, and now it's flipped under. And now I'm going to go in reverse. Don't let this pin after create an actual stitch. So now we're going to go in reverse. And we want to watch that same yarn right here. We want to see that flip under. And we're going to go all the way back to the beginning of where we cast on. And now we're at the black pin where we first cast on, but we need to do the same thing, that the yarn has to get caught under the piece that I just put the marker on. Okay, so we're watching this right here. It got caught under, and now I'm going to go backwards again. And I'm going to do this 24 times. Okay, we're approaching the notch that I put the marker on. So we'll keep going, and we're watching this yarn right here. I want to see it flip under. And now I'll go back. We're approaching the black pin again. Just move that out of the way. I want to see this yarn hook under. Okay, went under. Now I'm going to go back 24 times. Okay, so now I've done 24. The yarn has gone under that notch, and I'm going to remove the yarn from the yarn feeder, cut a tail, release it into the middle of the machine, and I'm going to just go across once with nothing being fed in. I'm going to thread my needle, and I'm going to pick these stitches off in the same way as we did before. Pull the stitches so that they tighten up. So now you have a piece that looks like this. And now we're going to put them together into the half circle. To create the half circles, we're going to pull on the end of the side we just released. So pull this so that all of these stitches cinch together like that. You have to pull really tightly. And then you still have your yarn thread onto this needle. Turn the work so that the wrong side is facing you, and insert the needle into the first stitch. Turn it around so that the right side is now facing you, and really, really pull very tightly so that this hole completely closes. And it should look like that. Insert the needle into another stitch and tie a knot to secure it. Now we're going to do the other side. We're going to do the same exact thing. Start pulling this tail so that these stitches pull together. Turn it around so the wrong side is facing you, and thread the needle. Insert the needle into the first stitch on the opposite end, and turn it around so the right side is facing you again. And now pull very, very tightly to close up that hole. And hold it while you insert it into a stitch and tie a knot. So now your piece looks like this. Have the piece facing vertically, and bring these two ends, the two circles that you cinched together, bring them together so that they meet in the center like that. And this is how the half circle is going to look. And we have these two long tails. One tail is going to go from the center this way, and the other tail is going to go from the center the other way. So using your needle and thread, begin closing up the two seams. So you're going to look for the front loop of both sides and bring those together with the needle. Once you get to the end, tie a knot. And now we'll go to the other side. Okay, we've made it to the end, and we're going to tie a knot. And there is the ear completed. And I purposely made this half circle, not an exact half circle. I wanted it a little bigger because I like how it kind of folds up like that. I think that makes it really cute and a little more lifelike. For the bow, I'm going to use the 22 pin machine. You can also use the Sentro 22 pin. And if you don't have a small machine, you can use the regular sized Addi or Sentro and just cast on 22 pins and do 20 flat panels and sew up the side to create a tube. So I'm going to first cast on with waste yarn, and I'm going to do 5 rounds of waste yarn. Once you've done your 5 rounds, cut a tail, make sure this last pin is catching it, and put it into the center of the machine. Put in your main color, put it into the yarn feeder, reset your counter, and we're going to do 20 rounds in the main color. Cut a tail when you've reached 20. Make it fairly long. And put that into the center of the machine, and again make sure the pin right before the black one has caught the yarn. And now we're going to do 5 rounds of waste yarn again. So put a tail into the center, put it in the yarn feeder, and do 5 rounds. Cut a tail, release the yarn from the yarn feeder, and do 1 round around with nothing being fed in to release the work from the machine. Pull on the yarn to tighten the stitches. And this is the beginning part of the bow. So now we're going to use a crochet hook to close up the ends of this tube. So find where all your tails line up together right there, and fold this in half, and we're going to begin on the opposite side. Take your crochet hook and put it underneath the first stitch and under the one directly behind it. Pull this stitch through the first stitch. Now put your crochet hook into the second stitch on the row closest to you. Pull that stitch through. Now go across to the other side and put that stitch on the hook and pull that through. And we're just going to go back and forth, up and down, pulling stitches through. So now I'm going to go to the bottom stitch and pull that through, top stitch, pull that through. Try not to do this too tightly so that you have an even edge when you're done. And just keep going through the bottom, pull it through, top, pull it through, bottom, pull it through, top, pull it through. And once you get to that last stitch, using this tail, pull that through the last loop. And that is one edge completed. And we're going to do the same thing to the other side. So again, I'm going to find my tails over there, fold this in half, and I'm going to begin on the opposite end. And I'm going to put the hook into the bottom loop, the top loop right across from it, pull it through, bottom, pull it through, top, pull it through, and so on. And again, take that tail and pull it through the last loop. And now we have to remove our waist yarn. So one end is always easier than the other to remove. And let's do the easy one first. Okay, so there's one end removed, and that's what it looks like when it's done, and it's actually a very nice little texture that it creates. And then this is the slightly harder, and it's not actually hard, it just takes a couple of more minutes. We just find that tail, and there's one row where you're going to have to just pull it out of all the loops like this. But once you do this row, then the whole thing unravels. And now the waste yarn is fully removed. So this is what we're left with. We have a rectangle like that. And now we're going to construct the bow. With our main skein, cut a pretty long tail. With our bow, let's find the center of the bow. So fold it in half just so that you can see where the center of the bow is, and kind of just finger press it so that you can make sure that this is centered. Then slide this end of yarn that you just cut underneath and just try to line it up with where you finger pressed the center. This is just to make sure that it's symmetrical. Pinch this up a bit, just the one side facing you, the other side is flat. Pinch this up, and then bring one end toward you and one end away from you. And then you're going to start to tighten this, but make sure you don't lose that little pleat that you made. So start to tighten it, just eyeball it, make sure you think it looks centered, and now you can tighten it up. Flip it over and tie a really tight knot. Okay, flip it over again. Look how cute that is. I love that effect that that pinch creates. So we've tied one knot, now we're gonna reinforce it with another. Flip it to the front again, and again, twist it around a couple of times. Just keep flipping it around to give it a really cute effect. Once you've twisted it around 5 or 6 times on the back, again, tie 2 knots very, very tightly. Keep these tails really long because you're going to use that to attach it to the hat. Flip it right side up, and there's your bow. So now we have our 2 ends here. We're going to just attach them to our yarn needle and weave them inside. And trim them. And there is your bow. Now we're going to start sewing everything together, and we're going to begin by sewing on the ears. So first, before we do anything, I just want to see roughly where I want to put the ears on the hat. So I have my 2 ears, and I'm going to just kind of look and see, do I want them far apart? Do I want them closer? I want them probably something like that. So I have 2 stitch markers here, which I'm going to use from end to end just to make sure that I keep them lined up correctly. So I want to have it roughly like this. And so I'm going to find the stitch that that would line up with, and I'm going to insert a stitch marker right there. And now what's nice is I am going to follow this row all the way down, and this will ensure that I attach this tightly. So there's 1 stitch marker, and then this is going to go all the way down to about there. And I'm going to fold this on its side, and I'm going to attach the 2nd stitch marker. So now it looks like that. Now I'm going to start sewing this on. We're going to sew this on from the top down. So with those tails that you already had, thread your needle and lining it up with the stitch that you had on the stitch marker, attach the needle through the first row of a stitch on the ear and all the way through the stitch of the stitch marker. And then we're just going to follow the path back and forth like this. Tie these two ends together. Okay, so there is one ear attached. Okay, and now we're going to do the same on the other side. So we want to make sure it's symmetrical. We're going to put our two stitch markers. I want to line this up. I want it about there. Let's see. And on this side, we're going to start from the bottom going up. So thread your needle. I'm going to just tie a knot with both ends. Okay, so now our ears are attached. Take out the stitch markers. And now I'm going to attach the bow. So with the bow, again, we have these long tails. See where you want to put it. Put both tails on your yarn needle. See where you want the bow to be. I want it to be in the middle, but not on the all the way on the top, because that would look like that. So we want it centered like that. Put your hand on the inside of the hat, and we're going to just poke the needle through both layers and pull it through on the inside. And before you tighten anything, just make sure you like how it looks. Okay, that's centered. And then on the inside, I'm going to remove one tail from this needle, and I'm going to with the needle go into one stitch, and I'm going to now tie a couple of very tight knots. Now, if this is for an older child, please reinforce this tighter. For a baby, it's not really necessary. Thread your needle with those two tails and just weave this into the middle between both layers like that. And shove it. Okay. There's the front. And then we're going to weave in these tails as well. This tail's kind of short, so I'm going to use a crochet hook. Pull it through. And then this tail, I'm going to weave through as well. And that is it, done. So again, where I did things in white, please make sure you do it in black because that's what Minnie Mouse actually looks like. The white was just so that we could see it on camera more easily. If you make this project, please let me know. Be sure to like and subscribe. Bye-bye.